everyone, it's Monica, and welcome back to Tailor-Made Cards for You. Well, today we're going to be putting together a layered card. Now, a few weeks ago, I had shared with you these cute little envelopes that I decorated, and they are what house my ephemera that I sell in my Etsy shop. I had a lot of fun creating and decorating this envelope, but what I thought I would do today is show you how you can actually take this type of technique and actually turn it into a Christmas card. So that's what we're going to be doing today. Now, collaging is not a new technique by far. Many people probably recognize this technique called decoupage. And that's really what we're doing here using some of this distressed collage medium. We're just taking scraps of paper and we're adhering it to a base to create a design. Now, there are lots of paper out there already that kind of give you that look. And here's an example of one of them. But I really like to create my own because I like the texture that you get when you create your own layering. Now we're going to be using some distressed mixed media paper because the paper does get a little bit heavy. And then we're also going to use the die cut that I showed you earlier. And then just some scraps and pieces of paper that I have in my craft room. I'm also going to be using some of my printables, and I'll make sure that I link up to those at the end. So to begin, I'm going to go ahead and just trim my paper down. And I'm making a 5x7 card, and typically when I am doing layered cards, I do like to make a bigger card because I like to make sure that it's not too busy. Well, I shouldn't say that. It is definitely going to be busy. But if you have a busy surface, you want to make sure that it's at least large enough where it won't confuse the eye. You want to be able to see some of those details, and a bigger card just works better for this type of technique. But you can certainly do it for smaller cards. I just tend to go for the 5x7s. Now, when I cut down my piece of paper, I'm usually cutting it about half an inch shorter than the actual card. So a 5x7 card, I'm going to start out with a piece of cardstock that's measuring 4.5 by 6.5. And that's because I typically like to add some black cardstock for the base of my card after I get it layered. And then at this point, I just go ahead and grab some of my scraps and my paper, and I start trimming it down. Now, even though I am cutting it with my guillotine trimmer, when I actually go to decoupage it or layer it, I am going to be tearing the edges because I like that worn look. You can certainly have a crisp edge, but personally, I like the way that the torn edges look. Now, before you start layering, what I like to do is I like to get some washi tape, and I like to just run it along the edges. This helps, especially when you have torn edges, to make sure that you get that torn look on the edges. If you actually put your paper up against the edge of the cardstock, then you're probably going to end up trimming it, and then you don't get the torn edge results. Now, I like to use the thin tissue tape paper, and I know Tim Holtz doesn't really carry it anymore, but you can still find it out there. I like the translucent look when I'm making these cards just because if I do put some of this tissue tape over my paper, you can still see the image coming through. Now, for the actual layering of the card, I am going to go ahead and speed up the video and turn on some Christmas music for you because it could get a little tedious, and I really don't want you to get bored. But I want to have you watch my process putting these cards together. So I'll be back in just a bit to finish up the card towards the end. Okay, so let's talk about a couple of things regarding the layering process. There has to be some planning when you are doing a layered card. I typically will start with bigger pieces and just start with the corners and then move from there. Keep in mind you are going to be covering some of those images, so if there's anything that you want to show, just kind of be thinking about that before you actually finalize it with the glue. Now, once you have your basic layout, you're going to want to go ahead and get your distressed collage medium. And what I usually do is I will just put some of that collage medium in the middle. And that way, if I do decide to put some of the paper underneath a layer that I may already have adhered, I'm not fully committed to it being completely adhered to the card. So by putting just the collage medium right in the middle, you'll still have your edges that you can lift up and move around a bit. Also, I'm not sure if you can tell, but my paper is really thin. I picked up some of that old printer paper that you used to feed. It used to have the perforations on the edges that you would tear off. And I have some of that old paper that's really thin and it already has a yellow tinge. And that's typically what I'll print out when I'm collaging. But you could easily use some regular printer paper. You want it to be thin because you want to be able to add your collage medium easily, and you don't want to add a lot of weight. If the paper is too thick, it just won't look right. So keep that in mind when you are doing some collaging. And then finally, you want to think about colors. I tend to go with a lot of the brown tones, but when I have the final product, I usually have something that stands out. Like that December 25th image right there is going to be a focal point. And then on my other card, of course, I have the red label on the bottom and, of course, that cute little deer. So just keep that in mind when you are planning your layout. Now, a lot of these images that I'm working with are from Ephemera from my Etsy shop. But as you can see, I am also working with the Tim Holtz Christmas ephemera pack. He has some really great images as well. So I think if you just kind of combine some of your different ephemera, you can get a great look. And as I've mentioned before, there are two types of distress collage mediums. I'm currently using the vintage collage medium, which has a little bit of a brown tone, and it does stain up your paper a bit to make it look a little bit more antiquated. All right, so once you have everything adhered, you probably will want to use your drying tool just to help set it. And then I have often used a brayer just to help make sure that it's nice and flat. And then once you have everything adhered, you can go ahead and just mat it onto some cardstock, which typically I will use black cardstock, and then mat it onto your white paper. And then of course you can always add some more brown tones by adding some walnut stain or some vintage photo to the edges of your paper. So as always, I will leave a list of all the products that I've used to create the cards, along with the links to the stores. If you've enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave me a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, don't forget to hit that subscribe button before you head out. I do plan on adding several more Christmas videos throughout the next few weeks, and I sure wouldn't want you to miss any. Now, before you head out, don't forget to leave me a comment. Let me know if you've started any of your Christmas cards yet and how many you plan to make. I do plan on doing some giveaways, and I will be drawing from some of my Christmas videos and making announcements on some of my future videos on the winners. So don't forget to leave me a comment. All right, everybody, thanks so much for stopping by, and we'll see you again next time.